Ambassador Marcus Reeves stood in the center of the largest room he had ever seen. The council chamber stretched for kilometers in every direction, carved from a single asteroid that floated in the emptiness between stars. Above him, below him, and all around him sat the representatives of 47 alien species. Some had scales that shimmered like oil on water, others were made of crystal that sang when they moved. A few existed as clouds of gas trapped in energy fields, their thoughts translated by machines older than human civilization. Marcus wore chains, heavy ones. They wrapped around his wrists and ankles, connected by links that glowed with some kind of energy field. The chains weren't just for show. They were broadcasting his vital signs to every being in the chamber, proving he was really human, really alive, and really standing trial, the supreme arbiter. A creature called Talgorn towered above the chamber floor. Its body seemed to be made of living metal, flowing and shifting as it moved. When it spoke, the words came from everywhere at once, translated instantly into a language Marcus could understand. Ambassador Marcus Reeves of Earth, Talgorn said, you stand accused of 43 violations of the sacred protocols of warfare. How does your species answer these charges? Marcus looked up at the thousands of eyes watching him. Some of those eyes had pupils. Some didn't have eyes at all but sensed him in ways he couldn't imagine. He thought about what his superiors on Earth had told him before he came here. Be respectful, be humble. Try to make them understand. He decided to ignore all of that advice. I don't answer them, Marcus said clearly. Because humanity never agreed to your protocols. The chamber erupted. Voices in 100 languages filled the air, all of them angry or confused or both. Talgorn raised one metallic hand and silence fell like a hammer. Every species that travels the stars has signed the Charter of Civilized Warfare, Talgorn said. Every species for 10,000 years. Every species but us, Marcus replied. You gave humanity 3 solar systems. You told us to stay there and be grateful. You never asked us to sign anything. You just assumed we'd follow your rules. A holographic display materialized in the air between Marcus and the council. It showed a star map with Earth at the center, surrounded by 3 small red dots marking human colonies. Beyond that, thousands of systems glowed in blue, all controlled by the species sitting in judgment above him. The Kresh Dominion invaded our colony on New Perth 6 months ago. Marcus continued. His voice stayed calm, but his hands clenched inside the glowing chains. They followed your rules perfectly. They sent formal warning 30 days in advance. They allowed our civilians to evacuate. They engaged our defense fleet in what you call honorable combat. When our ships were destroyed and the mathematics of war said we should surrender, they expected us to do exactly that. Another hologram appeared. This one showed a battle in space, human ships fighting against larger, more advanced Kresh vessels. The human fleet was outnumbered 3-1. According to every tactical analysis the Council had ever developed, the humans should have surrendered immediately. They didn't. The hologram showed human ships ramming Kresh dreadnoughts at relativistic speed. It showed human soldiers in damaged stations refusing to surrender, fighting with primitive weapons when their advanced ones ran out. It showed Admiral Kate Bridger, commander of the human fleet, broadcasting a message to the Kresh fleet that made several council members physically recoil. We will never surrender, Kate's recorded voice said. We will turn every ship into a missile. We will make every station a tomb you have to pry open. We will make this so expensive, so bloody, and so horrifying that you will wish you had never heard the word human. The Kresh had expected a civilized defeat. What they got was total war. High Commander Vectal, the Kresh representative, rose from his seat. His species looked like massive insects with mandibles that clicked when he spoke. They are savages, he hissed. They do not fight with honor. They use deception, psychological warfare, and tactics that violate every principle of civilized combat. We use tactics that win, Marcus said. There's a difference. Talgorn's metallic form shifted, light playing across its surface in patterns that might have been emotions. The Kresh fleet withdrew from New Perth after 6 months of combat. They suffered losses that should have been impossible. You defeated a species that has existed for 3 million years using technology you developed in less than a century. This concerns us greatly. Because we won, Marcus asked. Because of how you won, Talgorn replied. You ignored every rule of warfare. You attacked medical ships. You used biological agents. You broadcast false surrender signals. You fought without honor, without mercy, without any consideration for the lives of your own people. Marcus took a breath. This was the moment that would decide everything. Earth had sent him here knowing he might not come back. They had sent him with orders to make the Council understand one simple truth about humanity. Let me tell you about honor, Marcus said. The Kresh invaded New Perth because they wanted the resources there. They followed your rules because those rules guarantee that the oldest, most powerful species stay on top. Your sacred protocols aren't about preventing war. They're about controlling it. Making sure that species like humanity, new to the stars, stay small and weak and grateful for whatever scraps you throw us. That is not true, a crystalline being sang out. The protocols exist to prevent total war. To protect all species from annihilation. Really? Marcus gestured and a new hologram appeared. This one showed historical data, battle after battle over thousands of years. According to your own records, every war fought under the sacred protocols has been won by the species with the larger fleet and better technology. There has never been an upset. Never a smaller species defeating a larger one. The protocols guarantee that wealth and power remain exactly where they are. Stability is not a crime, Talgorn said. No, Marcus agreed, but assuming humanity would choose stability over survival was a mistake. He pulled up more data, information that made several council members shift uncomfortably in their seats. During the 6 months of war with the Kresh, humanity had been studying. Human scientists had analyzed every species in the council, learning their biology, their psychology, their military capabilities. Human strategists had war-gamed scenarios against every major power in the galaxy. We know how to beat you, Marcus said quietly. All of you. We've spent 50 years in your galaxy, watching and learning. We know your weaknesses. We know your fears. We know that you've been at peace for so long that you've forgotten what real war looks like. Are you threatening this council? Talgorn demanded. No, Marcus said. I'm asking you a question. The Kresh invaded us. We defended ourselves. We won. And now you want to punish us for not losing the way you expected. So here's my question. What exactly did you expect us to do? Die quietly? Follow rules we never agreed to? Let a species that has 3 million years of history crush a species that barely has 3,000? The silence in the chamber was absolute. We expected you to be civilized, Talgorn finally said. Marcus smiled, and it wasn't a pleasant expression. Civilization is a luxury built on survival. Humanity survived ice ages, plagues, wars that killed millions, and natural disasters that should have wiped us out. We learned one lesson that you've all forgotten. When extinction is the alternative, there are no rules. There is only victory or death. Before anyone could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the chamber. Red lights flashed. Holograms appeared showing the outer edges of council space. Something was wrong. Something was very, very wrong. A junior aide rushed to Talgorn's side, whispering urgently. The Arbiter's metallic form darkened, light draining from its surface. It appears, Talgorn said slowly, that this trial must be suspended. We are under attack. Marcus felt his heart race. Attacked by who? By something that makes your violations of protocol seem trivial, Talgorn replied. By something that follows no rules at all. The holograms in the council chamber shifted, showing real-time feeds from the outer territories. Marcus watched as massive organic ships, things that looked like they had been grown rather than built, tore through council defense stations. The ships were alive, their hulls pulsing with bioluminescence, their weapons firing streams of something that dissolved shields like acid through paper. The Vorax swarm, Talgorn announced, its voice carrying a tone Marcus had never heard from the Arbiter before. Fear. They emerged from the galactic core 3 hours ago. 5 species have already fallen. The chamber erupted into chaos. Representatives were shouting in dozens of languages demanding information, calling for military responses, or simply trying to understand what was happening. Marcus stood in his chains, watching the feeds with growing horror. The Vorax weren't fighting. They were consuming. Every ship they destroyed, every station they overran, was broken down and absorbed into their fleet. They were growing stronger with each victory. How many ships? Someone shouted. Unknown, replied a military advisor, a being made of crystalline structures that glowed with stress. They reproduce. Every vessel we destroy releases spores that become new vessels. Current estimate is 14,000 ships and growing exponentially. Marcus did the math in his head. The council had be 8,000 military vessels spread across their entire territory, and those vessels were designed for the kind of warfare governed by the sacred protocols, not for dealing with an enemy that didn't care about rules. A new hologram appeared, showing projected invasion routes. The Vorax were spreading in multiple directions, following shipping lanes and communications networks. They would reach the Council core worlds in 6 months at their current speed. They would reach Earth in 4. "We must mobilize the full Council fleet," Vektal, the Kresh commander, declared. His mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of agitation. "Form defensive lines according to Protocol 7. Engage them in formal combat and—" "They don't do formal combat," Marcus interrupted. Every eye in the chamber turned to him.
"Can't you see?
"They're not fighting a war. They're hunting. And you're trying to stop hunters with a rule book." "You are still under arrest," Talgorn said, but the Arbiter's voice lacked conviction. "You have no authority here." "No," Marcus agreed. "But I have experience. Humanity just fought a war against an enemy that outnumbered us, had better technology, and followed all your rules. We won. You want to know how?" Talgorn was silent for a long moment. Finally it gestured and Marcus's chains fell away. "Speak!" Marcus rubbed his wrists, buying time to organize his thoughts. Around him, the Council representatives were watching with a mixture of desperation and suspicion. "The Kresh expected us to fight like you do. Ship to ship, honor to honor, with clear rules of engagement. Instead, we fought like humans have always fought. We made it personal. We made it ugly. We made them afraid. Fear is not an honorable tactic," the crystalline being sang. "Fear wins wars," Marcus shot back. "Look at your tactical displays. The Vorax are following the same patterns over and over. They hit a system, consume everything, move to the next. They're predictable. That's their weakness. How do you exploit predictability against an enemy with superior numbers and regenerating ships?" Talgorn asked. "You don't fight them where they expect," Marcus said. "You make them fight where you want. Admiral Kate Bridger, our fleet commander, has a saying: we don't fight to win battles. We fight to make the enemy lose the war." Before Talgorn could respond, a new voice cut through the chamber. "Supreme Arbiter, we have an incoming transmission. Human Fleet Group, led by Admiral Bridger herself." The main hologram shifted, showing a dozen human ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel near the Council chamber. They were small compared to Council vessels, ugly and functional with hulls that showed scars from the Kresh War. But they moved with purpose, taking up defensive positions around the asteroid. Kate Bridger's face appeared on the screen. She was younger than Marcus, maybe 40, with short dark hair and eyes that had seen too much combat. "Council representatives," she said without preamble, "Earth has received your distress signals regarding the Vorax. We're here to help." "You were not summoned," Talgorn said. "No," Kate agreed. "But we're here anyway, because in about 4 months the Vorax will reach Earth, which means this is our problem too. And unlike you, we don't have the luxury of debating protocol while billions die." Vektal rose from his seat again. The Kresh commander looked at Kate's image for a long moment, then did something Marcus had never seen before. He bowed, lowering his massive insectoid head in a gesture of respect. "Human Admiral," Vektal said, his voice tight with emotion, "my species has fought yours. We have called you savages and barbarians, but we are not fools. You defeated us when you should have fallen. The Vorax have destroyed 3 Kresh colony worlds in the past 2 hours. They are killing my people. If you know how to stop them, I am asking for your help." The chamber fell silent. The request hung in the air like a physical thing. A species 3 million years old was asking humanity, barely 50 years in space, for military assistance. Kate's expression didn't change. "Colonel Torres," she called off screen. Tactical analysis. A new face appeared, a man with gray hair and tired eyes. "The Vorax are a hive mind," Colonel David Torres said, pulling up data. "They operate as a single organism spread across thousands of ships. Traditional warfare assumes individual commanders making individual decisions. The Vorax don't work that way. They adapt collectively. Every tactic you use, they learn from. Every weakness you exploit, they close. Then how do we fight them?" Talgorn asked. "You don't," Kate said. "You survive them." "There's a difference." Torres, show them the projection. A new hologram appeared showing the Vorax expansion routes overlaid with resource maps. Torres highlighted key systems along the routes. "The Vorax consume. They need organic matter, rare elements, and energy to reproduce. Every system they hit, they strip clean. But look at their path. They're following the richest territories, the most developed worlds. They're predictable because they're hungry. You want to starve them, Marcus said, understanding dawning. We want to turn their invasion into a death march, Kate confirmed. Every system in their path we evacuate and strip. Remove the resources. Collapse the infrastructure. Leave them nothing to consume. They'll still advance, but they'll weaken with every light year. That would mean abandoning dozens of colonies, a council representative objected. Billions of beings displaced. Resources worth trillions lost. Yes, Kate said simply. It would. But you'd be alive to rebuild. The alternative is being dissolved into the hull of a Vorax vessel while you're still conscious. We've seen the footage from Haven's End. We know what happens when you lose to them. Talgorn's form darkened. And you believe this strategy will work? I believe it will buy us time, Kate replied. Time to find their weakness. Time to develop weapons that can actually kill them. Time to survive. That's what humans do best, Arbiter. We survive. Marcus watched the council representatives. He could see them struggling with the concept. Their entire civilization was built on stability, on protecting what they had, on maintaining the status quo. The idea of deliberately destroying their own colonies went against everything they believed in. There's one more thing, Colonel Torres said. The Vorax are a hive mind, but they must have command nodes. Ships that coordinate sectors of the swarm. Find those nodes, kill them, and you might disrupt their whole operation. How do we find them? Vectel asked. You don't, Kate said. You make them reveal themselves. That's going to require tactics that violate every one of your precious protocols. Deception, psychological warfare, things that make civilized species uncomfortable. Things that humans specialize in, Talgorn said. Things that keep humans alive, Kate corrected. So here's my offer. Give Earth full military authority over the Vorax response. Let us coordinate the defense. We'll use your ships, your resources, your technology, but we do it our way. No committees. No debates. No sacred protocols. Just survival. And in return? Talgorn asked. Marcus stepped forward. In return, when this is over, Earth receives full sovereign status. No more confinement to 3 systems. No more restrictions on our military. No more treating us like children who need to be controlled. We save your civilization, you give us the freedom to live in it as equals. The chamber exploded into argument. Some species supported the idea, desperate for any solution. Others railed against it, unwilling to let go of their control. Marcus watched Talgorn carefully. The Arbiter was old, probably thousands of years old. It had seen civilizations rise and fall. It knew that this moment would define the future of the entire galaxy. Finally, Talgorn raised its hand for silence. The Council will vote, it announced. All in favor of granting Earth military authority? No, Kate interrupted. We don't have time for votes. The Vorax will reach the next cluster of colonies in 6 hours. Those colonies have a combined population of 4 billion. You can vote and they all die. Or you can accept our help now and maybe they live. Your choice, Arbiter. Marcus held his breath. This was it. Either the Council would swallow their pride and accept humanity's help, or billions would die while they debated protocol. Talgorn's metallic form rippled with what might have been anger or respect. Admiral Bridger, it said, you have your authority. Do not make us regret this. Kate smiled and Marcus recognized the expression. It was the same smile she'd worn before ramming a Kresh dreadnought at 0.3 light speed. Regret comes after survival, Arbiter. Let's make sure there's a galaxy left to have regrets in. The war room that Kate Bridger established aboard her flagship looked nothing like a Council military command center. There were no ceremonial displays, no formal seating arrangements, no protocol officers ensuring everyone followed proper procedure. Instead, screens covered every surface, showing real-time data from across the galaxy. Human officers worked alongside Council military advisors, the mixture creating a controlled chaos that made several alien observers visibly uncomfortable. Marcus stood next to Kate, watching as Colonel Torres coordinated the evacuation of the Talaris cluster. 6 inhabited systems, home to 4 billion beings, were being systematically stripped of everything valuable. Human industrial teams worked with frightening efficiency, dismantling orbital stations, collapsing mining operations, and relocating populations to safer territories. The Talaris government is protesting, a communications officer reported. They're calling it abandonment. It's survival, Kate said with eye. Hout looking up from her tactical display. Torres, how long until the Vorax arrive? 4 hours, 18 minutes, Torres replied. Evacuation is 73% complete. That's not enough, Vectal said. The Kresh commander had taken up a permanent position in the human war room, observing their methods with a mixture of horror and fascination. 27% of the population remains. Over 1 billion beings. We're doing what we can, Kate said. But I won't risk human ships to save people who refuse to evacuate. We gave them warning. We provided transport. If they choose to stay, that's their decision. A decision based on your barbaric strategy, a Vorn observer noted. The crystalline being's voice carried sharp harmonics of disapproval. Kate finally turned to face the council observers. You want to know what's barbaric? I'll tell you. Barbaric is sitting in a comfortable chair debating the ethics of survival while people die. Barbaric is following rules written by species so old and powerful, they've forgotten what it means to fight for existence. You've had 10,000 years of peace because your protocols ensure the weak stay weak and the strong stay strong. Humanity doesn't have that luxury. We remember what it means to be prey. Before anyone could respond, an alarm blared. The Vorax fleet had entered the Talaris cluster ahead of schedule. They were moving faster than projected, their organic ships pulsing with eager hunger. All civilian ships out now, Torres ordered. Military vessels implement dispersal pattern Delta. Marcus watched as council ships that had been guarding the evacuation route suddenly scattered, jumping to pre-calculated coordinates throughout the cluster. It looked like retreat, like panic. Several council observers began protesting immediately. You're abandoning the civilians, the Vorn sang. No, Kate said calmly. We're teaching the Vorax a lesson. Torres, activate the beacons. Throughout the Talaris cluster, automated transmitters began broadcasting. They sent out signals in patterns that Colonel Torres had designed specifically to attract Vorax attention. Mathematical sequences, energy signatures, and what Torres called mimetic triggers. Information designed to be irresistible to a hive mind. The Vorax fleet shifted course immediately, abandoning their systematic consumption to chase the signals. They swarmed toward the beacons like insects drawn to light, their ships accelerating to impossible speeds. Now, Kate said, the beacons detonated, but they weren't explosives. Each beacon released a cascade of information, flooding local space with data streams that meant nothing to humans but apparently meant everything to a hive mind. The Vorax fleet's coordination broke down. Ships collided with each other. Some began firing on their own kind. The perfect unity of the swarm fractured into chaos. What did you do? Telgorn's voice came over the communication channel, the arbiter watching from the council chamber. Mimetic warfare, Torres explained. The Vorax are a single consciousness spread across multiple bodies. Their strength is coordination, but that's also their weakness. Introduce the right kind of information into their network, and you can disrupt the whole system. It won't kill them, but it will confuse them. How long will the effect last? Vectal asked. Maybe an hour, Torres said. But that's not the point. The point is we just proved they can be hurt. They can be manipulated. They're not unstoppable. While the Vorax fleet struggled to re-establish coordination, human ships appeared throughout the cluster. They weren't attacking. They were documenting, recording the Vorax response, analyzing their recovery patterns, studying how the hive mind rebuilt itself after disruption. You're using the Talaris cluster as a laboratory, Marcus realized. We're using it as a classroom, Kate corrected. Every interaction teaches us more about how they think, how they adapt, how they can be beaten. The council has been throwing ships at them in formal engagements. We're learning their language. Over the next 3 weeks, the pattern repeated across a dozen systems. Humanity would evacuate populations ahead of the Vorax advance, strip systems of resources, and use each engagement to test new tactics. Sometimes the tactics worked. Often they didn't. But each failure taught the humans something new, and they adapted with a speed that astonished the council observers. Dr. Rebecca Stone joined the war room in the 3rd week, bringing data that made even Kate pause. Stone was a xenobiologist, small and intense, with the kind of focus that came from spending too many hours staring at microscope displays. I've been analyzing the Vorax biology from the samples we collected, Stone said, pulling up holographic models. They're incredible. Each ship is a living organism, capable of regeneration, reproduction, and adaptation, but they all evolved in the galactic core, where radiation levels are 1,000 times higher than normal space. So they're radiation dependent? Torres asked. More than dependent, Stone said. They need it. In normal space, they're struggling. It's like they're holding their breath. They can function, but not at full capacity. That's why they're following the routes with the highest stellar activity. They're trying to stay in radiation-rich environments. Kate leaned forward. Can we exploit that? Maybe, Stone said. If we could modify stellar radiation levels along their route, create dead zones where radiation drops below their comfort threshold, we might weaken them significantly. Their ships wouldn't regenerate as fast. Their reproduction would slow. They'd become vulnerable. How do we modify stars? Marcus asked. Very carefully, Stone said with a slight smile. And with technology the Council has kept locked away for millennia. They have stellar engineering capabilities they've never used because it violates about 100 different protocols. Talgorn's voice came over the channel again. Stellar engineering is forbidden. The potential for weaponization is too great. So is extinction, Kate shot back. You can either let us use every tool available, or you can watch the Vorax consume your civilization one system at a time. Your choice. The silence on the channel lasted for almost a minute. When Talgorn finally spoke, its voice carried a weariness that transcended species. Do what you must. Over the next month, human engineering teams worked with Council scientists to deploy stellar modification satellites along the Vorax invasion route. The technology was ancient, built by species that had mastered star manipulation millions of years ago and then locked it away as too dangerous. Humanity used it without hesitation. The effect was immediate. Vorax ships entering the modified zones began to weaken. Their regeneration slowed. Their reproduction rates dropped. Human ships, coordinated by Kate's tactical brilliance and Torres's psychological insights, began hitting Vorax vessels in the dead zones, destroying them faster than they could recover. For the first time since the invasion began, the Vorax advance stalled, but victory came with a cost. The human colony on New Brasilia, caught in the path of a Vorax flanking maneuver, refused evacuation. The colonists, many of them veterans of the Kresh War, declared they would hold the line. Marcus watched the battle from the war room, unable to look away. New Brasilia had a population of 8 million. They had minimal military assets and no chance of defeating the Vorax fleet bearing down on them. They fought anyway. The footage showed teachers with rifles, children loading ammunition, elderly colonists manning defense turrets. When the Vorax breached the orbital defenses, the ground forces didn't retreat. They fought block by block, building by building, making the Vorax pay for every meter of ground. This is insane, the Voran observer sang, its crystalline structure vibrating with distress. They're committing suicide. They're buying time, Kate said quietly. Every hour they hold costs the Vorax resources they can't afford. Every Vorax ship they destroy is one less ship attacking the next system. But they're going to die, Marcus said. Yes, Kate agreed. They are, and they know it. That's what humanity does when survival is at stake. We die standing up. New Brasilia fell after 72 hours. Of the 8 million colonists, fewer than 200,000 survived evacuation. But the Vorax fleet that had attacked them was reduced by 40%, and the delay allowed human forces to fortify the next system in the invasion path. In the council chamber, Talgorn addressed the assembled representatives. Humanity fights without honor. They sacrifice their own people. They use tactics we have forbidden for millennia, and yet for the first time since this invasion began, we are not losing ground. Vectal stood. My species called humans barbarians. Perhaps we were right. But barbarians remember something we civilized species forgot. Sometimes survival matters more than honor. Marcus, listening from the war room, allowed himself a grim smile. The galaxy was finally learning what Earth had known all along. In war, there were no rules. There was only victory or death, and humanity would always choose victory. The Vorax had been contained, but contained was not defeated. For 6 weeks, human tactics and council resources had managed to slow the invasion, creating a stalemate that bought time but solved nothing. The dead zones weakened Vorax ships. The mimetic attacks disrupted their coordination, and the scorched earth strategy starved their expansion. But the Vorax were adapting. Their regeneration was improving even in low radiation zones. Their hive mind was developing immunity to Torres's information attacks. They were learning and learning fast. ions of individual vessels. The next moment, the command node simply ceased to exist. Marcus watched the tactical displays in the war room as the cascade effect began. Vorax ships that had been moving in perfect coordination suddenly went still. For 7 seconds, nothing happened. Then, like dominoes falling, the effect spread through the entire hive mind. Ships began shutting down, their bioluminescence fading, their organic hulls going dark and lifeless. In 7 minutes and 13 seconds, every Vorax vessel in the galaxy died. 4,747 command nodes destroyed. Approximately 800 billion individual Vorax entities ceased to function. An entire species gone. The silence in the war room was absolute. Kate Bridger stood motionless, staring at the displays showing red indicators turning gray across the entire galaxy. Colonel Torres had his eyes closed, his lips moving in what might have been prayer. Dr. Rebecca Stone was openly crying, her hands covering her face. "It's done," Marcus said unnecessarily. "They're gone." In the council chamber, chaos had transformed into stunned silence. Representatives from 47 species watched the same data, seeing the same impossible result. The Vorax swarm, the unstoppable threat that had consumed a quarter of council space, had been erased from existence in less than 8 minutes. Talgorn's metallic form had dimmed to almost black. When the Arbiter finally spoke, its voice carried across the chamber like the tolling of a funeral bell. "You have committed an act that no species in galactic history has ever done. You have deliberately, systematically, and completely exterminated another sentient species." "We saved the galaxy," Kate said, but her voice lacked conviction. "You did," Talgorn agreed. "And that is what makes this so terrible." "You were right. The Vorax could not be negotiated with, could not be contained, could not be defeated through conventional means. Humanity's solution was the only solution that would work. And that terrifies us. Because we broke your most sacred law," Marcus said. "Because you were willing to break it," Talgorn corrected. "Every species in this council has had the capability to commit extinction-level warfare for thousands of years. We chose not to. You chose differently. In 8 weeks, humanity has proven that survival matters more to you than any principle, any law, any moral consideration. You are the most dangerous species in the galaxy." "Dangerous to species trying to exterminate us," Kate shot back. "The Vorax started this war. We ended it." Vectal, the Kresh commander, stood. His mandibles clicked slowly, a sign of deep thought. "My species fought humans and lost. We called you barbarians for refusing to follow the sacred protocols, but those protocols would have gotten us killed by the Vorax. You saved my people by being exactly what we condemned you for." Other representatives began speaking. Species from the front lines offered gratitude mixed with horror. Core world species demanded humanity be placed under permanent military restriction. Some called for Earth to be expelled from Council space entirely. Others suggested humanity should lead the Council military, since they clearly understood warfare better than anyone else. "Enough," Talgorn said, and silence fell. Humanity demanded full sovereign status and expanded territory in exchange for defeating the Vorax. That agreement stands. Earth will receive 4 times their current territory and complete autonomy. But there will be conditions. "We're listening," Marcus said warily. "The Terminus network will be dismantled," Talgorn said. "That technology is too dangerous to exist. Any species, including humanity, found developing similar weapons will face immediate military intervention." "Agreed," Kate said. "Second, humanity will accept Council observers on all military installations. Not to control you, but to ensure transparency. The galaxy needs to know what humans are capable of." "Fine," Marcus said. "But those observers don't get veto power over our defense decisions." "Accepted," Talgorn said. "Third, humanity will share its military doctrine and tactical training with all Council species. You have proven your methods work. Others need to learn them before the next threat emerges." Kate smiled slightly. "You want us to teach the galaxy how to fight like humans?" "We want the galaxy to survive the next threat," Talgorn replied. "Whatever that threat may be. Are these terms acceptable?" Marcus looked at Kate. The Admiral nodded. "They're acceptable," Marcus said. "Earth agrees." The formal vote was unanimous. For the first time in galactic history, a species less than a century in space had been granted full sovereignty and major territorial expansion. Humanity had gone from confined and controlled to one of the great powers of the galaxy in 8 weeks, but the victory felt hollow. In the days following the vote, Marcus found Dr. Stone alone in one of the observation decks staring out at the stars. She hadn't spoken much since the Terminus network activated. "I killed them all," she said without turning around. "I designed the weapon. I gave the activation order. 800 billion lives. You saved trillions," Marcus replied. The projections showed the Vorax consuming everything in 8 months. "Every species, every world, I know the math," Stone interrupted. "I know we made the right choice. That's what makes it worse. It was the right choice to commit genocide." "What does that say about us?" Marcus had no answer. He stood next to her, watching the stars in silence. "Kate is already planning the colonization of the new territories," Stone continued. "Torres is writing training manuals for council species. Everyone's moving forward like we didn't just erase an entire branch of evolution from existence. Because we can't afford to stop," Marcus said. "Talgorn was right. We're dangerous. But danger is what kept humanity alive when we were prey animals on Earth. Danger is what won us our freedom in this galaxy. We can regret what we did. We can carry that burden, but we can't let it stop us from surviving." Stone finally looked at him. "Is that enough? Is survival really all that matters?" "No," Marcus admitted. "But it's the foundation everything else is built on. Without survival, there's no morality, no ethics, no civilization. We crossed a line to ensure there would be a future where we could debate whether crossing that line was right." Over the following months, humanity expanded into their new territories with the same efficiency they had brought to war. New colonies sprang up on worlds that had been Vorax-controlled. Human industrial vessels, the same ones that had stripped systems ahead of the invasion, now rebuilt those systems with human infrastructure. Several council species requested human military advisors. Kate personally oversaw the training programs, teaching alien commanders the same lessons humanity had learned through millennia of warfare. That rules were tools, not absolutes. That honor was a luxury of the victor, not a requirement of combat. That survival required the willingness to do whatever was necessary, even things that kept you awake at night. The sacred protocols of warfare were formally amended to include what became known as the Humanity Clause. In cases of existential threat to galactic civilization, all protocols could be suspended. It was a recognition that sometimes survival required setting aside principle. Marcus returned to Earth 6 months after the trial that had started everything. He expected celebration, parades, recognition of humanity's triumph. Instead, he found somber reflection. Memorials had been erected for the 8 million who died at New Brasilia and the thousands who had fallen in other battles. But there was also a memorial for the Vorax, a simple monument acknowledging the species humanity had erased from existence. "We're not proud of what we did," the Earth president told him, "but we'd do it again. That's what makes us human." Kate Bridger was promoted to Grand Admiral and given command of Earth's expanding fleet. Colonel Torres became head of the new Human Military Academy, training the next generation of officers. Dr. Stone resigned from military service and founded the Institute for Xenobiological Ethics, dedicated to ensuring that if humanity ever faced another extinction choice, they would make it with full understanding of the cost. Marcus himself was appointed Earth's first ambassador at large, with authority to speak for humanity across the galaxy. His first official act was to address the Council one final time. "You called us barbarians," he said, "savages who don't understand civilized warfare. You were right. We don't understand it because we never had the luxury of being civilized. Humanity evolved as prey. We survived by being stubborn, adaptable, and willing to do things other species wouldn't consider. That hasn't changed just because we reached the stars." He paused, looking at the representatives of species that had existed for millions of years before Earth even formed. "The Vorax taught us something important. They taught us that the galaxy isn't safe. It isn't fair. And it isn't controlled by anyone's rules. There will be other threats. Maybe not today, maybe not for centuries. But they'll come. And when they do, humanity will be ready. Because we've learned the most important lesson of all. There are no rules for survival. There's only the will to continue existing, and the strength to pay whatever price that demands." 3 weeks later, deep space monitoring stations detected another anomaly at the galactic rim. It looked like nothing anyone had seen before, but the pattern was familiar. Coordinated movement, aggressive expansion, and no response to communication attempts. Earth's response was immediate. Fleet mobilization, industrial production ramped to wartime levels. Military training intensified, because humanity had learned who they were in this galaxy. They weren't the diplomats. They weren't the philosophers. They weren't the ones who maintained peace through protocol and procedure. They were the ones who survived, no matter what it took, no matter what it cost, no matter who called them barbarians for refusing to die quietly. Marcus watched the fleet depart from Earth orbit, thousands of ships heading toward the unknown threat. He thought about Kate's words from months ago. Civilization is a luxury built on survival. Humanity had built their civilization in the harshest environment imaginable, and they had carried those lessons to the stars. They had no rules for war, only victory, and sometimes, victory meant making choices that would haunt them forever. But they would live with those choices, carry that burden, and keep humanity alive for another generation to judge their actions. That was enough. It had to be, because in the end, being right mattered less than being alive. Retry Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses. Sonnez für anything.